Howdy, folks. Welcome to the Wild West Crypto Show Daily Update. This is a special Good Friday edition. And so, Brent, by the way, our daily update is brought to you by ARC, ARC.io. Let me tell you something, the simplest way to blockchain, folks. Check it out. And Brent's going to run through some things. And then this special feature, we have Bo Polny standing. He's in the waiting room.
Bo knows, and he's in the waiting room. Let's run down through the markets real quick. Bitcoin's up a big $11. You know, we almost got through 60,000. It's kind of fallen back, but it's no reason that it doesn't fall back. I mean, we're at 60,000. So overall market's up 1.31% in the cryptos. That means the altcoins are doing better than Bitcoin. Dow's up 171, which is 0.5% rise. S&P's up 46. That's 1.18 rise. NDX is up 238. That's 1.8 rise. Gold's up $6.49. Silver's up half a penny. Our crude is basically flat. And look at those futures. 63,095 for December 21, 65,995 for December of 22, but they both are up 160 with Bitcoin up right now 34.75. Ethereum's up 108. Polkadot's up 195. XRP's up 2 cents. Cardano's up 7 cents. Litecoin up $3, puts it at 205.75. Link is up $1.15, and Theta is up 32 cents. All right, so ran through that. It's all green. I'm green. We look like a couple of Easter eggs here
on Friday.
On a Good Friday. So now we're going to bring in Bo, and there he is. Hey, Bo, how are you doing?
Wonderful. Thanks, guys. Thank you.
Absolutely. Bo, I have to tell you, your headline on your slide deck is a statement all in its own on this Good Friday. Greatest time point in human history. And buddy, I'm excited for the next, several minutes here while you drag us through this and tell us everything that's going on. It is exciting times.
Actually, and I want to preface what we're going to talk about just to clarify a little bit. So, this is Good Friday, but remember the reason it's Good Friday, like we talked earlier, is because this is the time point when Satan thinks he killed Christ. So to him, it's a Good Friday. Ishtar is a fallen angel. So just be very clear about all these things. The world we live in, it's all make-believe. None of it's real, okay? Jesus died and he rose on the third day. It's Happy Resurrection Day, not Happy Easter. Just to clarify where we are biblically, because these are biblical times. So let's, like God speaks very clearly. So let's speak clearly to have an understanding of what's going on, because it's crazy what's coming down the pipeline here. And like the headline, of my presentation, greatest time point in human history. So to be truly honest with you guys, we've waited forever for something big to happen. And the world has been controlled. Every market that you went through, Brent, earlier, as you know, it's just everything is controlled. Silver's up 50 cents. Wow. What a joke. It goes up $1, goes down $1, goes up $1, goes down. That is called price manipulation. Okay. Mm-hmm. There's no such thing as silver going up and down and like a yo-yo for the past 9 years, from $49 down to 12 or whatever it was. And then it came up, and it's been like for the past 3 years been range bound to within $3 or something. It's just, what they want to do is maintain their status quo. When I say status quo, it's their status quo forever, because their status quo gives them one thing: control of humanity. And we're about to come to a time point where they lose it. And when they lose it, we're going to see crazy infighting amongst the people that have been controlling this stuff. So I don't know the events that are coming, guys, but I'm excited to watch the next few months. Let's just put it that way.
Oh, amen to that. Amen. And, you're right. Talking about the status quo, one of the things that a lot of us don't understand is that these financial systems are so interrelated and they're built on nothing. Mm-hmm. In fact, if you look at a chart of what happened this will be my next week's fence post. you're going to chart when we went off the gold standard in 71, that's when the divergence of productivity and income, it all unhinged. And all you have to do is look at that graph and you know what's happened. Well, the problem is it's become so unhinged, the only way they can keep it going is to perpetuate the myth.
Sure.
And that only is going to happen so long, and then a day of reckoning's pretty much here.
Well, you have to look at history, right? As long as this is really important to consider and people to understand, right? JFK introduced a silver-backed dollar, right? That prevented money printing to infinity. So he needed to go bye-bye. And so they took care of it. Okay. Then Nixon turns around and decouples gold from the dollar. When you have a monetary instrument, you have the ability to print and control it, and it's not attached to anything. If it's not attached to gold and silver, it has no value. So what you do is you perpetuate a lie over and over and over. You repeat a lie to tell everybody it has value, and eventually people believe the lie. So for the past, 100, however long this currency's been around, but basically since they detached it, it's not been attached to gold. So all it's attached to is faith and confidence in the United States. Well, that's great as long as there's faith and confidence in the United States. But what have they done now for the past 50 years? They've printed money to infinity. So anything that, and this is true about the laws of life, right? Anything that has an infinite value has no value. You get what I'm saying? Like, if you can make something to infinity, as much as you want of it, what gives it value? There is no value to it. That actually is the reason cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin does have value as an example, right? Because there's only 21 million in theory, or that are supposed to be ever of them, right? That's why gold and silver have value. Why do they have value? Because you have to go through energy, you have to dig them up. There's only so much in the ground, how much you're going to find at a certain time. So it's finite in its value because there's only so much of it. So anything that's in limited supply has value. Anything that can be printed to infinity has no value. It's just that for the past generations, we've been told that the dollar and these fiat currencies have value. But you have to go back to the start of them, right? What happened was long time ago, why did they create paper money? They created paper money for one specific reason, for convenience. So someone who had a block of, or a rock of gold would go to the bank. They would give the banker the piece of gold. The banker would then give this person numerous instruments of paper to make it more convenient to go transact, because you can't, one bar of gold or one rock of gold buys too many things. So they would give them numerous pieces of paper to go transact. But at any point in time, they could take that piece of paper back to the bank and convert it for a smaller piece of gold if they spent some of it. So that was the attachment that was always there until Nixon. And now since Nixon, since there's no more attachment, you can create it to infinity. Okay, that hasn't happened. They haven't created it to infinity. Really? They don't report how much money is now out there. It's called M1 or M3, whatever it was. They stopped reporting that years ago.
Oh, yeah.
And now, to top it off, every president that's come in, they used to create millions 20, 30 years ago. Then they would create billions. And now they're creating trillions. Am I wrong?
No, not at all. And the interesting thing is one of the big proponents of it is AOC, and she's saying that is it 2.8 trillion or whatever, 2.5 trillion, whatever, it's just money, that they're not printing enough for this latest bill that Biden and the Congress is proposing. But she's a big modern monetary theory nut. And basically the modern monetary theory people believe that anything that the government generates money, because it controls the currency, is going to get an equal value out there with whatever they spend it for. And so it's almost kind of like if Christians decided to just throw away the Bible and didn't try to adhere to any kind of perfect righteousness or any of God's words. It's just whatever story we make up.
Yeah. And the other thing, Bo, the US since World War II, the US dollar's been the world's reserve currency, and that's headed towards a brick wall as all this financial meltdown comes. So let's dive a little deeper into this, because you've got some pretty interesting things that you can share with us.
The reason I'm talking about this, and I'm glad we kind of started on this footnote about the dollar, because that is the central focus of everything. And the reason I'm saying that is because how does one create or control humanity? Through their labor, through their hours, right? So if you have a monetary instrument and you give it to people, you borrow it to people, then people now have to go to work to pay it back. The beauty is they never borrowed you anything, because they never lent you anything. What they lent you was air. They never, because to create a zero and with a one in front of it, that has no value. It's just a digit. So they lend you nothing, but then they expect you to pay it back. And that's why they have to create, going from millions to billions to trillions, because the system has to keep inflating itself, because deflation blows it up. And it basically would be biblically what is described as the third seal. So that kind of takes us into where we're at today, is where biblically last year, 2020, was the year that changed the world forever. Once this first seal is opened, the world will never be the same. So read about Revelation, understand about the seals. When the line of Judah opens the first seal, the world will never be the same. So we have the first, now we've had the second last year. Now we're in the third seal. And the third seal, if you look at Revelation, there's a black horse with scales that he's holding in his hand. Okay, what do scales do, guys? What do they do?
Measure, they weigh. Yes, balance.
Right. It's a balance, right? So for forever, they keep piling on money. And so this here being the fiat currency, they've kept creating more and more of it. So it just keeps getting heavier and heavier. See what I'm saying? And so the scales have done this. They've gone from thousands, millions, billions, trillions. That's what's happened. So the weight is completely out of balance now of what's been created in terms of value. And this monetary system is what controls humanity. You don't believe me? Well, how did they get Trump out of the office? Well, how about you pay off and bribe anybody and everybody, and look what you get. You get an expected end result, which they were expecting. Okay, so that's what has happened. And so now no one can stop these people, as you've seen. You haven't had the military been able to stop them. You haven't had a president of the United States been able to stop them. They're all powerful, right? Because it's an enterprise that has just been controlling everything. And so what we need to see here happen is an intervention. And when I mean intervention, I mean biblical, because no one has been able to stop these people. Am I wrong?
No. And it's at God's hand, and that's what will make the difference here.
Right. And so at some point, and this scenario, this has been written biblically for thousands of years. We're coming to April is supposed to be a time point in history, which is, the Red Sea was written in the Bible, and we all, read the Bible, and we can imagine, what that moment was like when you see like a sea open up and people walk through it, right? Could you imagine being there, right? Well, that's God doing something incredible, right? Imagine being the Noah's Ark when the rain started and all of a sudden the land cracked open, water shoots up, and most of the earth, or however much of the earth floods, right? Imagine being there. Well, that's God again, okay? April is supposed to be a moment like that. I don't know what's coming. I'm just telling you that something has to stop, something has to change, and we've got numerous cycles that have, I've basically taken from the Bible, overlaid on present time, and they're all pointing to the end of April, the start of May, for the glory of God. When I mean glory of God, I mean the power of God to come out and do something to change the direction this world is headed, because the world is headed in a bad place or in a bad direction right now.
Yeah. And Bo, I have to tell you, with whatever it is, like you said, you don't know, but even the freeze that I'm sure you heard about a month ago that we were involved in here, we are so frail. Humans have gotten to be so dependent on the powers that be, and we are so frail that 1 or 2 days of having sub-zero temperatures, being without power. I mean, there were people, they thought the world was at an end. And it's literally, we didn't have power and water for a few days,
Right. I've heard about, I was listening to some people on YouTube, and it was crazy. That's why, but I guarantee you, Brent and Drew, neither one of you are having issues. Why? Because you prepared with some food and some water, and you might have even had a generator, right? And why? Because we've been talking about this for how long now, guys?
Yeah, 1.5 years, easy.
Right. Yeah. Okay, so in the Bible, it's been written numerous times about prepare, have your lamps full of oil. It's just, we don't know what's coming, but if you're prepared, then there's no worries. That is the whole point, whether it's being prepared financially, whether it's being prepared spiritually, and whether it's being prepared with food and water. But all three are important, right? With spiritually being number one. But it's critical to be prepared, because if you're prepared, then really nothing can affect you. And when these events go down, you're also not shocked because you were expecting them. I'm sure, so in that time point when the freeze happened, and remember, that was a season. So the winter brings cold. Well, biblically, God does things in times and in seasons. Well, the season of winter was pretty shitty, wasn't it? Right. Well, the reason was because God allowed evil to have a window. Mm-hmm. A window, a season. Okay, so God allowed evil to have a season, and that could be equated to a window. But in the year, there's 4 windows. There's 4 seasons. So the world has had a taste of winter, of cold, of deep freeze, of what Satan can do, or what evil can do, let's just say. Now we're in spring. Spring is supposed to bring an incredible change, which then leads into the summer season, and then the fall and the winter. So I would tell you that these next 3 seasons are going to be truly extraordinary. And by the time this year is over, everything you see today, you will come to realize, much of the world will come to realize that what we see today is a lie. And most of it will have already fallen apart. So it's going to be a really incredible year. 2020 was the year that things started, and 2021 is the year that everything ends. That started last year. So fasten your seatbelts. We got incredible coming. I believe we got the power of God. We got the glory of God we're going to witness here coming this year. If you want to kind of scroll through the presentation, I've done this. Some of the slides are from prior interviews I did with you guys and other interviews as well. But for the most part, I've condensed some of the slides here to kind of keep this interview right, on point. April is supposed to be one of the greatest moves of God's Spirit in history, page 1. Page 2 talks about the Constitution. Really important. The United States was founded under God. The people that founded it, about a third of the Constitution is out of the Bible. Mm-hmm. So if you think that evil can come in, and if these people think, if evil thinks that they can come in and just take over the United States, that has a covenant with God, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. God has a covenant with the United States. And once we see the power of God, you're going to come to realize that this is true. So law and order will return in 2021. Historically, page 3, it's fascinating, but the United States and Israel are very much related. The United States and Israel are a brother-sister relationship. From a egg and a goose theory, the United States is a golden egg. Israel is the golden goose. So the world for thousands of years, as you know, has been fighting over Israel. Why do they fight over Israel? Because that's the promised land. So forever the wars have been there, but now to get Israel, you got to take the United States. You got to get the golden egg first. So how do you take the golden egg? Well, you take it over, you destroy the Constitution, but again, not going to happen. It's fascinating how Israel and the United States are coordinated back and forth as brother-sister in Israel. So we've got Genesis 15:13. Israel was in bondage for 400 years. And then at the end of 400 years, Moses shows up, and then he raises his staff, Red Sea parts, Israel crosses the Red Sea. That was 400 years to the mark. Mayflower landed in 1620. 400 years to the mark was last November. Fascinating, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you one thing about God, and I'll tell you one thing about the Bible. There are no coincidences. No such thing as a coincidence. And you're going to come to realize that everything in this presentation, there's no such thing as coincidences. So I'm just going to show you the math, and that's it. Let's figure out, let's see what the events are and on these time points. We'll see. But the math is fascinating. And there are no coincidences. So 400 years of Mayflower takes us to November of last year, which means that the very first Passover would be the Passover of Moses crossing the Red Sea. That would equate to this April, literally less than 30 days away. Will something biblical happen? I don't know. But it's fascinating that we are living in these time frames, and we're going to know very soon if something specific happens on those time points. But I can tell you, my cycle time points for gold and silver and cryptocurrencies coordinate and line up with this time point. So something is expected to go down here. We're going to scroll over to page 4, Revelation 12. Revelation 12 goes back to September of 2017. It states 1,260 days, which is a Daniel time point. So 1,260 days would take us to last March, or just, just almost a month ago, March 6th. Now, when you talk Daniel's timeline, if you scroll over to page 6, you'll notice after 1260, you've got 30 days. So that 30-day time point takes us to this coming Monday, April 5th. So interesting, so Daniel's time point, that when you have a 1260, you immediately can follow that by 30. So that takes us to this coming Monday. So we will see what could transpire. But again, really powerful time points we're sitting on right here, that something could happen. So we've got the 400-year cycle. We've just talked about the Noah cycle. We'll talk about that in a minute as well. And now we're looking to Revelation 12 sign, all pointing to April. Next chart. So we're looking at possibly this month, gold, silver, and cryptocurrencies are expected to lift off and go vertical, meaning a loss of control. Page 8. This is what you talked about earlier, Brent. The Nixon moment. Okay, so that event was in August of 71. So biblically, there's something written in the Bible. So we are right now, as of August 2020, in the 50-year cycle. This is the 50 years, actually, the 50th year right now, this year. And that year ends, this year ends, would be August of 2021, this August. In the Bible is written, Leviticus 25:9, sound the trumpet on the 10th day of the 7th month. Well, that goes from Rosh Hashanah, which was September 18th, 2020, 10th day, 7th month, would line up to April 23rd, 2021. So we're 3 weeks away from that time point. Oh, actually, by the way, guess what I got in the mail today from Israel? I got my own shofar, guys. The greatest thing. I gotta show, maybe I'll pull it up at the end here. But so anyways, yes, I ordered it because I want to blow it. I'm going to be blowing my shofar on April 23rd, 2021. I promise you that I will be blowing it because I'm telling you something big is happening. So I ordered it from Israel for that specific day. Anyway, just side note. Going off to page 10, so that takes us to proclaim liberty throughout the land and all of its inhabitants. So that's Leviticus 25, 9, 10. So that's where we're at. So the bondage would be related to the US dollar. That is basically the slavery that people have been under for years now, especially since they've detached it and can now print it to infinity. So the bondage that Israel was under was chains. The bondage that we are under is the fiat money system, if that makes sense. Okay. Yep. So that takes us to page 11. So now we got Leviticus 25, 9, another cycle, and then takes it to also now the Red Sea moment. When you do the calculations, Moses and Israel left the day after Passover ended, which was the 5th. So 20 days to get to the Red Sea and the water parting. So that was 20 days. That takes it to specifically April 25, 2021. So 2 days right after Leviticus 25, 9. Fascinating, within a 48-hour window. And then the next chart takes us to Noah, and this is the flood cycle, which that we talked about last year already. That was the market crash of March. April, oil going to 0, which equated to the day the door closed. And then 40 days, Pentecost. 150 days takes us to Rosh Hashanah, death of Ginsburg. And then 220 days takes us to April 26, 2021, the day and exact time point that Noah steps off the ark. So within a 72-hour window, we've got Leviticus 25, 9, the Red Sea moment, and Noah cycle, all within 72 hours. So if there's a time point that we, meaning our world, could see the glory, the power of God, I would say that the end of April is looking absolutely incredible. And that whole cycle is then topped off with a 400-year cycle with regards to Israel, correlation with that of the Mayflower. Absolutely incredible in terms of what's coming down the pipeline here. So this year Passover is supposed to be incredible. Oh, this is really cool. Now, April 26th. So that we've talked about April 26th since I think May of last year on your shows, guys. So, and I didn't know, and none of us knew that this is going to be going down this way for forever. And crazy is just going to continue to get more crazy. But so now we've had April 26th. Since last year, as of May of last year, we've been speaking about this time point, May 26th, being something that's supposed to be in a very important time point, like Noah stepping off the ark.
Yeah.
And so a very, very important time point, the 26th of April. So now, if it's supposed to be an important time point, it's we had Pentecost, which is at 40 days. We had 150 days. We had Rosh Hashanah. So if the 26th is supposed to be a biblical date and an important date, it should be a feast date, a biblical date. Well, something that I just discovered, which I didn't even know, but the 26th, if you do some research on it, it's actually the second Passover. So there's a second Passover for the ones that were unclean, and that's written in Numbers 9:6 through 11. It describes the second Passover, and that second Passover, incredibly, this year lands on the 26th of April. How does that happen? Oh, that's just a coincidence.
Yeah.
But you want another coincidence? Guess whose birthday it is? Trump's wife.
Really?
On that same exact day. Just a coincidence.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Just telling you that this April is supposed to be the greatest time point in human history. And that's all I can tell you, and it's really getting exciting for what's coming down the pipeline here. Page 11, I've lined up the time points here so you can kind of look into the future and what are some of the key time points are on page 14. Page 15, we talk about the dollar. Basically, the dollar is going to turn and then just plunge. Something happens, and this is going to be beyond their control. The page 16 is, again, they talk about the third seal. That specifically relates to God's intervention and the scales.
Mm-hmm.
So the fiat money system burns up. And as it burns up, God's money, gold and silver, get value and go crazy. So that is the seal, the third seal. It's a financial rebalancing of the world's monetary system. And it's supposed to start with the dollar and then later lead into the bond market and then progress into the stock market. So everything paper goes to hell in the next few years. And that will be page 16. And then page 17, starting at the end of April into the start of May, we are looking for the start of a new dawn. And this new dawn is after the glory of God. And if we get the glory of God, we're going to get the greatest spiritual uprising the world has ever seen. So going to spring, then into summer. Oh, man, I am telling you, just prepare for, something truly incredible that happens here very, very shortly. And this year is going to be truly spectacular. When I say spectacular, it's going to be spectacular, incredible for the people that have waited for this, prepared for this, okay? But it's going to be just like the scales, right? It's going to be horrible, terrible for those who were running the other side of the scales.
Mm-hmm.
So when I say it's a financial shift, but the financial shift leads to all kinds of disclosures and truths getting revealed, because remember, it says in the Bible, the truth will set you free. Well, the freedom is going to come in the rebalancing, but the freedom is going to come with a whole bunch of consequences for those who have been plotting against God. Page 18 takes us into the new era. So fear and hopelessness turns to peace, rejoicing, and love. So again, we've talked about preparation, faith in Christ, food and water, gold, silver, and cryptocurrencies. So if you want to finish talking about cryptocurrencies, we can kind of end there. You guys can ask the questions or anything else you have questions about. But cryptocurrencies are going to go the same direction as gold and silver.
Well, Bo, and what's interesting about this is literally for the last 70 plus years, the U.S. has been, which was founded foundationally on Christian principles. And we've been turning away from this, being justified to, take prayer out of the schools, get rid of the 10 Commandments, even with this whole COVID fiasco,
right.
Faux fiasco. They went and you could go to Walmart, but you couldn't go to church. And, everything, there's been an attack on Christianity. And this is God flipping the script on this thing, which, like you said, is predicted all this time ago. And we've been telling people literally for 18 months, we have you on, every 30, 45 days. And we've been telling people for 18 months, get prepared, get right with God first, then get out and do the things that you need to. Don't have all your eggs in this financial system that we've got. It is collapsing.
Interesting thing is, Bo, like you said, we've been talking about April for a long time. But what I find really interesting, and this is kind of technical analysis 101, not looking at biblical analysis of time trends or whatever, but when you have a signal that's coming on a 3-minute chart, a 30-minute chart, an hourly chart, a daily chart, a monthly chart, and an annual chart, then, you're looking for Rod Steiger to step out from behind, some pillar and say, it's the Twilight Zone, because that something big is going to happen. And I did not realize until this show, because we've been talking about it for a long time, I did not realize how many different things are pointing to this exact point in time. I mean, I knew because we've talked about it that it was a big inflection point, but from my perspective, just all those different rhythms coming down at that same time and those timelines coming down at that same time, folks, you better get busy.
Well, yeah, and to that point, we've been telling with 18 months, we're saying out into the future, start preparing. Well, let me tell you something. That wall's getting close, and we've got this next slide where what you have done, it's uncanny how accurate you are, and we subscribe to your crypto index has from the time we started doing this, and we follow that, and we're invested in the cryptocurrencies that you recommend, and I have to tell you, they've been wildly successful for us, and everybody else who has done that, and you're always gracious enough to go. If Bobby, put up that next slide. You have your gold and silver index, you have your Bitcoin, your cryptocurrency index, where you go in, and it's just uncanny how accurate you've been in this. So a whole lot of our preparation has been with, I'm going to call it an inside tipster in there saying, folks, you may want to look at these for hedging your bets. And the time is narrowing, and the people that don't take steps almost immediately are going to find themselves short, like we saw in that big freeze. But let me say something real quick. I will tell you, and we hadn't really spoken since then. When we had that freeze and everything here that lasted 7 days, it was almost below freezing for 7 full days here. Loss of power, water, and everything else. What we spent our time doing, we were so well prepared. We were out there sharing food and gas and propane with neighbors who hadn't been prepared.
I knew it. See, I didn't even tell me that, but I knew it. That's the point of being prepared. So whenever someone around you, when people around you need stuff, we are the stewards of the day. We take care of people around us. That is our job because we did prepare.
Yeah.
Amen.
Exactly. No, it's really incredible, and we don't know what's coming. But as we've said from the time we first started, you were gracious enough to come on here. We've said, folks, don't be afraid. Be prepared. Because what is coming is then a period of peace after this upheaval.
Well, and one other thing, and of course, we're talking about the perfunctory preparedness of food, water, so on and so forth. But, one of the reasons they may want to entertain getting involved with Bo's service is guess what? Once this inflection point happens and things are off to the races, well, then you're going to go, well, those little cowboys been telling me to get involved for years. I'm finally going to do it. And then what do I do? Because at that point in time, it's kind of all boats are starting to rise. But we also have told you for many years, some of these crypto boats are going to sink because they're built on a screen door, and you need to kind of discern between one from the other, to be quite honest. So anyway, that's one thing I want to point out is there is an after the inflection point that Bo's service could be very productive for someone.
Yeah.
Well, what I could say about the crypto market itself is number one is when we started talking, Bitcoin was, 5,000, 6,000, 7,000, when it finally got to 10,000. And then it went to 20,000. And, then the patterns we've had, the point being is that, now it's 58,000 and change, almost 59,000. So between 59 and 58 today being Friday, April 2nd. The point being is that, those who had listened would have purchased cryptocurrencies when they're under 10,000, right? Or under 20,000. Now look where they are today. And, those things are going 100,000, 200,000 this year yet. So the point is, but now you're only looking at a 4-fold increase. And from our newsletter that I've never been like a lover of Bitcoin anyways, right?
Sure.
I talk about Bitcoin because it's the tide, and when the tide rises, all the ships come up, or all the boats come up with it, right? And so if you look at our newsletter, we cover, I think, 12 or 11 cryptocurrencies, of which I've done all the research and know that we've got some solid coins. And about, I think, 8 of the coins or 9 of the coins are up between 1,000 minimum, I think, on the lows to up to 16,000%. All of those have outperformed Bitcoin. So the point being is the alternate coins, when you pick the strong ones, they outperform Bitcoin. So Bitcoin, that's why, it's just, Bitcoin, is nice to have, but I prefer the alternate coins because
there's particular coins that are far outperforming any price movement of Bitcoin. So that is the reason, I think, a lot of people like what I write, because I cover specifically Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm.
I show its cycle, but then we overlay the critical, or not so much, we overlay some really wonderful alternate coins that have really had some fire under them over the past year now. So it's been really exciting. And, for the moves that we've seen, the cryptos, just so you understand, are only front running what gold and silver, particularly silver, are going to do. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people may have missed a good piece of the boat already for cryptocurrencies, but silver has just, it's only doubled from where it was last year.
Yeah.
So it's still got, they're holding it back, because when gold and silver go vertical, the financial system that it's over.
Yeah.
Going the
Okay,
other
because-
direction. And Bo, if you'll remember, he called the low.
I know.
At 3,200 within a day or two or three, kind of thing.
Within 24 hours. It was actually, well, I had the exact patterns, because life was
you were being too nice to yourself, saying, around 5,000, or no. You said, that's it. It's over,
Yeah, that did happen, actually. Yes. I forgot about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I tell you what, Bo, and I can't wait, to see what happens the rest of this month.
Oh, yeah.
And then come and reflect on it. And it's still, folks, preparation. You never stop preparing. And so if you've been like the grasshopper laughing at the ant, you better get out there and put your ant pants on. And I'm not kidding you. Bo, they still have an opportunity, because as much as cryptos have risen over the last 6 months, which has been significant, they've still got a long way to go, as do gold and silver. And to your point, our personal stashes are about 10% gold, 90% silver. And then the cryptocurrencies are the same thing, with about a small amount of that in Bitcoin, and the rest of it in these other altcoins that have opportunity for multi-X returns,
I fully agree. So, it's just really a wonderful time point to be at. So a couple of things about the cycle coming. There's a big move and explosion coming here soon, okay? That move is going to be wild. It's going to be great. But then remember, right, they don't want, they're fighting tooth and nail to not let Bitcoin get above 60 right now. So when it blasts through 60, it's going to be awesome, okay? And that's coming very soon. But then when it takes that out, they're going to go crazy, and they're going to throw everything they can to hammer it down, not right away, but a little later. So the swings are going to be pretty epic. So the swings, we've got them. We know what's coming. And then the move after the next pullback is going to be even more spectacular. So again, if you like to play the swings, we have the dates. If you're not interested if you're just holding cryptocurrencies, then just hold them. You don't need dates. But for those who are, who like to trade or kind of lighten up and then buy back, or whatever you want to do. So it is fun. And it's more peaceful to have dates, and time points. Yeah. But on the other end of it too, I can just tell you, there's, the whole world, when the Leviticus 25:9 moment occurs, the financial system, as you know it, shifts from a paper-based system to a digital system. And then on top of that, it'll be physically based by gold and silver, backed by gold and silver as well, too. So the financial fiat money system dramatically changes forever this year, 2021. It's really important to understand. And so, we're about to experience one of the greatest moves of God's Spirit, in the history of the world, right? Which means that we're about to see one of the greatest financial events. One of the greatest financial events in the history of this world are expected to be seen this year. And it all starts here in April.
Yeah, that's awesome, Bo. Again, very, very insightful. Brent, he does a lot of that hard work for us while we're over here doing the other things we're doing. It's great to
that's why we can dress like the Easter eggs and show up and talk to him.
Yeah. Bo, once again, thank you, folks. Go on there. There's a link on there, and you can download the presentation he did today off our website or his. And there's a wild 49, which will give you can take his 14-day 99 deal, get it for half price. Recommend you do it, folks. Time's getting close on preparation. And Bo, God bless you and Sophia and the boys, and have a happy Easter. We're dressed for it, and look forward to speaking with you again real soon.
Brad, Drew, God bless you and your families. Thank you again for having me here, and I truly hope the world is listening. So thank you.
Oh, amen.
Amen. Amen.
Thank you, Bo.
Thank you, Bo.
Thanks.